Technology companies are increasingly and overwhelmingly powerful, but laws aren't the only way to push back on them. Tucker just spoke to someone who's written a book mocking Silicon Valley. Here's what happened.
Power of big tech is not typically considered a laughing matter. A handful of big companies have destroyed a lot of people's privacy, threatened free speech, and in some cases empowered China at the expense of the United States. But even if Silicon Valley's power is a serious issue, perhaps getting the public to think about it in a more critical and amusing way might awaken them to the threat. Jessica Powell is a former head of communications for Google. She wrote the book, The Big Disruption. It's a novel. It satirizes Silicon Valley. She joins us tonight. Jessica Powell, thanks very much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
There are not many satires about Silicon Valley. It seems like the most self-serious place maybe on the planet.
We take ourselves very seriously.
Yes, because you're saving the world, right? It's not.
Constantly.
You're not just selling products. You're like
We're saving the world.
Improving human nature itself.
Every moment of the day.
Do they believe that?
I mean, I think to a certain degree they really do, and I do think there have been some incredible things that Silicon Valley's built.
Well, I agree.
Right? But I also think there's a certain level of hypocrisy in that we go out saying that we're doing all these wonderful things, and we don't always think ahead about the potential, the unintended consequences of what we build.
I wonder if, like, Edsel Ford ever thought that. Like, I've got a new car, but it's more like a religious movement than a car. I mean, this is actually kind of like this new vehicle will give you eternal life. Like, I don't think they ever convince themselves of that in other industries. Yeah,
and I was really interested in writing the book because I feel like on the one hand, when you're in these companies, there's a lot of kind of almost Kool-Aid drinking and sort of delusional,
yes.
We're wonderful. And then on the outside, you have a really, really critical tech stealing all our jobs, stealing all of our data. And I think the truth is somewhere in between the two. And so I wanted to do something, as someone who's part of the industry and likes the industry, but thinks we can do better, I wanted to do something that people could actually connect with rather than just write off as, oh, the Luddites are criticizing us again.
Right. No, and is that their view?
I think there is generally a view that when people, particularly people who aren't engineers, or who don't understand technology, when they come in criticizing you, they're just not sufficiently living in the future, thinking far enough ahead,
We used to call that hubris. I don't know what we call it now.
Innovation.
Innovation. So because I was about to say there are so few novels in this genre, I think you may be the only occupant of this genre. And you had a real job. I mean, you were the chief spokesman for Google. So what's the response been like to you?
I mean, I've had a lot of really positive emails from people within Google and from across the industry. The typical email tends to go, I'm laughing a lot, I'm cringing a lot, and I've been told there's a lot of conversations happening in the micro kitchens.
Well, God bless you for starting those conversations. I always wonder, as I watch these companies grow ever larger, if anyone within them thinks what people used to think, which is concentrations of power at this level are inherently dangerous to everybody. You shouldn't have this small a number of people with this much power. They're going to misuse it. Do they think that?
I think on some level they understand that. But I do think that on the whole, because everyone thinks that they're doing such good work, they think that whether it's the means justify the ends, or they constantly are looking at what they're building and not looking at some of the negative consequences. I think one of the other real problems is that there's such a monoculture of thought and such a focus on data all the time that if, for example, you have 2 billion users, and let's say a couple bad things happen, I don't know, some live stream suicide, some electoral interference, whatever it might be, you say, oh, that's a small percentage of our 2 billion users. Well, a small percentage, say 0.1%, 0.01% of 2 billion, that's a lot of electoral interference. That's a lot of ethnic cleansing in Myanmar, right?
So I guess that raised my last question, which is the most obvious of all, and you could answer this as a novelist. Should engineers be in charge of our society?
I love engineers. I think engineers are incredible, and I think some of the stuff coming out of the Valley is incredible. But I think you need more people at the table. I think you need more people that represent the outside world and not just a whole bunch of people that live in one geographic part of the world making decisions that affect everyone else.
I hope they take your criticism seriously, because it's obviously meant in good faith and formulated with deep knowledge of the topic. And so I hope they listen to you. Thank you very much.
Thanks.